2 months ago, my older sister stood up at my birthday dinner, smiled at me across a table of 20 people, and handed me an envelope. "Open it," she said. "I've been working on this for months." Inside was an itemized bill. Total amount due, $28,247.82. Payment terms, net 30 days. Subject, reimbursement for gifts, loans, and financial assistance provided to Rebecca Hartley, 1994-2024. The table went silent. My sister Vanessa kept smiling. "I figured," she said sweetly, "now that you're 30 and finally getting your life together, it was time to settle accounts. Don't worry, I'm not charging interest." I stared at the paper in my hands. Line items going back to my 8th birthday. American Girl doll, $110. High school graduation gift, cash, $500. Half of mom's hospital bills when you couldn't contribute, $3,200. Your share of dad's funeral costs, $2,400. On and on. 30 years of gifts. Loans I'd forgotten. Bills she'd apparently covered while keeping a running tab. And she'd presented it to me in front of my friends, my boyfriend, my boss, and our entire family. Like I was a debt she'd finally decided to collect. But here's what Vanessa didn't know. Here's what she'd never bothered to calculate. While she was adding up every dollar she'd ever spent on me, I'd been giving her something she couldn't put a price on. And by the time this story is over, she'd realize exactly what that gift was worth. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand how we got here. How two sisters raised in the same house by the same parents became two completely different people, and how one of us decided love could be measured in receipts. I'm the younger sister by 4 years. Vanessa was born when my parents were 23, fresh out of college, still figuring out how to be adults. They said she was planned. I was born when they were 27, after my dad lost his first job and my mom was working 2 part-time positions. They said I was a surprise. Vanessa never let me forget which one of us was wanted. Growing up, she was the golden child. Perfect grades, perfect manners, perfect everything. She got the bigger bedroom because she was older. She got the nicer clothes because she appreciated them. She got the college fund because she'd earned it. I got hand-me-downs and we'll figure it out when it's your turn. My parents loved us both. I genuinely believe that. But Vanessa was the investment. I was the expense. By the time I was 18, I didn't go to college, not because I wasn't smart enough. I'd gotten into a decent state school, but my dad had just been diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's, and someone needed to help my mom manage his care. Vanessa was in her senior year at Boston University, studying finance, dating a law student, building the life she'd always planned. She couldn't come home, so I did. I deferred my acceptance, got a job at a local pharmacy, and moved back into my childhood bedroom. I helped my dad with his medications, drove him to appointments, learned how to cook meals he could actually swallow as his condition progressed. I held my mom while she cried in the kitchen at 2 a.m., terrified of losing him. I did this for 2 years. Vanessa visited 4 times. At Thanksgiving, she handed me an envelope with $500 and said, "For school, when you're ready." I never deposited it. By the time my dad stabilized enough for professional care, my college acceptance had expired. I enrolled in community college instead, taking night classes while working full-time. Vanessa had graduated summa cum laude and landed a job at a wealth management firm in Manhattan. She sent me a graduation card with $100 inside. I used it to pay for my textbooks. Our parents died within 3 years of each other. Dad first, when I was 24. His Parkinson's had progressed to the point where his body just gave up. I was there when he died, holding his hand. Vanessa was on a business trip in Singapore. She made it back 2 days later in time for the funeral arrangements. She said, "I'll handle the costs." She pulled out her black Amex card at the funeral home. "Don't worry about it." I tried to contribute. I had $800 in savings. She waved me off. "Keep it. I've got this." At the time, I thought she was being kind. Now I know she was keeping score. Dad's funeral costs $8,200. Rebecca's contribution, $0. Vanessa's silent resentment, priceless. Mom went 3 years later, breast cancer, stage 4 by the time they caught it.
I moved back home to take care of her. Vanessa visited on weekends when she could, but her career was critical phase, and her husband Mark, the law student who'd become a corporate attorney, didn't like her being away too long. I was the one who shaved Mom's head when her hair started falling out. I was the one who held the bucket when the chemo made her sick. I was the one who slept on the floor next to her bed because she was afraid of dying alone. Vanessa paid for the medical bills our insurance didn't cover. All of them. She never asked me to contribute, but later I'd see the receipts. Mom's medical expenses, Rebecca's share, $3,200, noted as unpaid. After Mom died, I was 27 and completely untethered. No parents, no degree, I'd dropped out of community college to care for Mom, no career, no savings. Vanessa invited me to stay with her and Mark in their Westchester home while I got back on my feet. I stayed for 8 months. I paid rent, $400 a month, which Vanessa said was just to cover utilities. I cooked, I cleaned, I walked their dog, I organized their garage and repainted their guest room and planned their dinner parties. Vanessa called it earning my keep. I called it survival. When I finally moved out into a tiny studio in New Rochelle, Vanessa gave me a housewarming gift, a $500 Williams-Sonoma gift card. "For your new kitchen," she said, hugging me. I used it to buy a coffee maker, some pots and pans, dish towels. Later, I'd see the line item, housewarming gift, $500. She'd kept the receipt. She'd kept all the receipts. For the next 3 years, I rebuilt my life slowly. I got a job as an administrative assistant at a nonprofit that helped women re-enter the workforce after family caregiving. The pay was terrible, $38,000 a year, but the work mattered. I helped women like me, women who'd sacrificed their 20s to take care of dying parents, figure out how to write resumes and interview for jobs, and believe they had value beyond what they could give. I went back to school part-time, finally finishing my bachelor's degree in social work at 29. I started dating a man named Chris, a high school teacher, kind, patient, completely unimpressed by money. I was happy. Not rich, not successful by Vanessa's standards, but happy. Vanessa, meanwhile, had made partner at her firm. She and Mark bought a second home in the Hamptons. She drove a Tesla, vacationed in Santorini, posted Instagram photos with captions like #blessed and work hard, play hard. She called me once a month to check in. Every call followed the same script. "How's work?" "Good, busy." "Still at the nonprofit?" "Yeah." "Have you thought about looking for something with better pay? I could connect you with some people." "I like what I do, Van." "I know, but you're almost 30. You should be thinking about your future, retirement, investments." "I'm doing fine." A pause. Then, "Okay, well, if you ever need help, you know I'm here." I did know. I just didn't realize she was keeping a ledger. When I turned 30, Chris threw me a surprise party. Nothing fancy, a private room at a local Italian restaurant, 20 people, string lights, and a playlist of my favorite songs. My best friend Lucia flew in from Chicago. My coworkers came, Chris's family came, and Vanessa came, with Mark, dressed like she was attending a gala instead of a birthday dinner at a mid-range restaurant in Westchester. She brought a gift bag, large, expensive-looking, tied with a silk ribbon. I hugged her. "You didn't have to get me anything." "Of course I did," she said, smiling. "You're my baby sister." We ate, we laughed, Chris gave a toast that made me cry. Then, just as they were bringing out the cake, Vanessa stood up. "I'd like to say something," she announced. The room quieted. "Rebecca," she began, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "We've been through a lot together. I've watched you struggle, and I've tried to help however I could. And now that you're 30, now that you're finally building a stable life, I thought it was time to give you something really meaningful." She slid the gift bag across the table. "Open it." I opened it. Inside was a 3-ring binder and an envelope. I opened the envelope first. That's when I saw it. Invoice. Bill to Rebecca Hartley. From Vanessa Hartley Morrison. Total amount due, $28,247.82. I stared at the number. Then I opened the binder. Page after page of receipts, spreadsheets, line items. Every gift she'd ever given me, cataloged by date with the original price. Every bill she'd covered with interest calculations. Every loan, every don't worry about it, every I've got this, itemized and totaled. 30 years of my life reduced to an accounting ledger. The table had gone completely silent. I looked up at Vanessa. She was still smiling. "You're not trying to be cruel," she said, "but I've given you so much over the years, Becca, and I think it's time you took some responsibility. I'm not asking for everything at once. Payment plan options are in the back of the binder. But you're 30 now. You have a job, a boyfriend. It's time to pay your debts." Chris's face was pale. Lucia looked horrified. My boss, sitting 3 seats down, was staring at Vanessa like she'd just set the table on fire. Mark, Vanessa's husband, looked uncomfortable but said nothing. And me? I sat there, holding a binder full of receipts, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Rage. Not the hot, screaming kind. The cold, clarifying kind. The kind that made everything suddenly perfectly clear. I closed the binder, set it down, looked at my sister, and said very calmly, "You kept receipts." "Of course I did," she said. "I'm good with money. You should try it sometime." A few people gasped. I nodded slowly. "You're right, Van. You're good with money. You're good at tracking it, managing it, investing it. You've built a whole career on it." "Thank you," she said, like I was complimenting her. "But here's the thing, Van. You're really bad at math." Her smile faltered. "Because if you'd actually done the accounting, real accounting, not just the kind that makes you feel superior, you'd realize you don't want me to settle this bill." "What are you talking about?" I stood up, pulled out my phone, opened my notes app where I'd been keeping my own list. Not of money. Of time. "Let's start with Dad," I said. "I took care of him for 2 years while you finished college. That's 730 days. If we calculate that at the national average for in-home caregiving, about $25 an hour, 8 hours a day, that comes to $146,000. Vanessa's face went white. "Then there's Mom. I was her primary caregiver for 18 months. That's 540 days. Same rate, another $108,000. I looked around the table. Everyone was staring at me. "I lived with you for 8 months and paid rent, but I also cooked, cleaned, organized, and hosted your dinner parties. Personal chef services average $50 an hour, housekeeping $30, event planning $75. Let's be conservative and say I worked 20 hours a week. That's $124,800 you didn't have to pay someone else." Vanessa tried to speak. I kept going. "I dog sat for you 17 times while you and Mark traveled. Professional overnight pet care in Westchester runs about $100 a night. That's $1,700. I helped you move 3 times. Professional movers would have cost you at least $2,000 total. I edited your graduate thesis because you're terrible at grammar. Professional editing services would have charged at least $500. I planned Mom's funeral because you were too grief-stricken. Funeral planning services cost around $1,500. I looked directly at her. Should I keep going? The room was dead silent. "By my count," I said, "you owe me approximately $384,500. minus your $28,247.82, that leaves a balance of $356,252.18. I smiled. I'll send you an invoice. Vanessa's face had gone from white to red to something close to purple. That's not, you can't, those were family obligations, she sputtered. So were your gifts, I said quietly, but you decided to make them transactional. So let's be transactional. I was helping you. No, Van, you were keeping score, and you were doing it so you could hold it over me for the rest of my life, so you could remind me every single day that I was the failure and you were the savior. My voice cracked, but I didn't stop. I gave you my 20s. I gave you my education. I gave up college, relationships, career opportunities, everything, so you could go to Boston and build your perfect life. While I was changing dad's diapers and holding mom's hand through chemo, you were networking and vacationing and climbing the corporate ladder. I sent you money, she yelled. I gave you crumbs, I shouted back, and then you saved the receipts so you could remind me I was a charity case. Tears were streaming down my face now. I loved them, Vanessa. I took care of them because I loved them, not because I expected payment, not because I was building a case, but because that's what you do for family. I picked up the binder and held it up. This, I said, this is the saddest thing I've ever seen, because it means every gift you ever gave me, every dollar you ever spent, came with strings attached. It wasn't love, it was an investment, and now you want your return. I set the binder down in front of her. Keep it, frame it, add it to your portfolio, but don't ever call me again. I grabbed my purse, took Chris's hand, and walked out of that restaurant. Behind me, I heard Lucia say, "You're a fucking psychopath, Vanessa." I heard my boss say, "I think you should leave." I heard Mark say, quietly, "Van, what the hell were you thinking?" But I didn't look back. The next morning, I woke up to 43 text messages, 12 from Vanessa. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You're being dramatic. I was trying to teach you financial responsibility. You've always been ungrateful. Fine, don't talk to me. See if I care." 10 from my Aunt Carol, mom's sister. "Your mother would be ashamed of you. Vanessa has done so much for you. You owe her an apology." Then, "Never mind. Vanessa just told me what she did. I'm so sorry, honey." 8 from Lucia. "Are you okay? That was the most badass thing I've ever seen. I'm staying in town. Lunch? Seriously, I will fight her." And 1 from Mark, Vanessa's husband. "I didn't know about the bill until last night. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I think she's wrong." I didn't respond to Vanessa. I blocked her number. A week later, a letter arrived at my apartment. Handwritten, Vanessa's stationery. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. Inside was a single page. "Rebecca, I don't expect you to forgive me. I'm not sure I'd forgive me either. I've been thinking about why I did it, why I kept the receipts, why I turned love into a ledger. I think it's because I was angry. Angry that you got to be the good daughter while I was the successful one. Angry that mom and dad talked about you like you were a saint while I was just the one who sent checks. Angry that you got their last words, their last moments, while I was building a career I thought would make them proud. But they were already proud of you. They always were. And I hated you for it. So I kept score. I told myself I was being responsible, practical, smart. But really, I was just trying to prove I mattered more, that my money was worth more than your time. It wasn't. I don't know how to fix this. I'm not sure if I can. But I'm sorry. Vanessa." I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. 6 weeks later, I got a notification from my bank, a wire transfer, $28,247.82 from Vanessa Hartley Morrison. The memo line said, "I was wrong. I'm sorry." I stared at the number for a long time. Then I transferred $28,247.82 to the nonprofit where I worked, earmarked for our emergency assistance fund for women in crisis, and I sent Vanessa a receipt. Chris and I got engaged 3 months later. We had a small ceremony, 30 people, backyard wedding, taco truck catering. I didn't invite Vanessa, but the day before the wedding, a package arrived. Inside was a card. I know I'm not invited. I understand why, but I wanted you to have this. It was our mother's wedding ring, the one Vanessa had claimed after Mom died, saying she'd keep it safe, the one I'd assumed I'd never see again. She'd want you to have it, the note continued. She always loved you more anyway. I used to hate that. Now I just miss her. And I miss you. V. I wore the ring on my right hand at the wedding, not because I'd forgiven her, but because it was Mom's, and some things are bigger than the people who hurt us. I'm 31 now. Vanessa and I don't talk, but twice a year I get a donation notification from my nonprofit. Anonymous donor, $5,000. I know it's her.
I don't acknowledge it, but I don't return it either. If you've ever had someone turn your love into a transaction, if you've ever been made to feel like you owe something for being cared for, I want you to hear this. You don't. Love isn't a loan. Family isn't a business, and the people who keep score are the ones who've already lost. I gave Vanessa the best years of my life, and she gave me receipts. But I also gave our parents peace, dignity, and love in their final moments, and that's something no spreadsheet can quantify. Some debts can't be paid, some gifts can't be returned, and some people will spend their whole lives trying to prove they're valuable, when the truth is simpler. You're valuable because you exist, not because of what you give, not because of what you owe, just because you're here.